had tables.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, that's all. Really?
Everyone, we would like to welcome Congressman Wilson. Thank you so much for coming to our breakfast.
This is, I'm always happy to see people be involved. I've been trying to do this all my life.
I know. You've done good.
Really, at high school at Charleston is when I first started organizing meetings, and a teenage Republican club in the auditorium. And right after the meeting, the principal came and said, "You can't. Teachers have said this is not appropriate." I said, "Oh, okay." So we, one of our members, C.B. Brandon, had a truck, and at that time in history, that was early to have a truck. So it was really cool, and it was a really beat-up green old truck. And so our future meetings were in the parking lot, conducted from the back of the truck.
Well, we're thankful Lizard Thicket lets us come and meet here.
I'll come around with these.
I tell you, the way it's family is terrific.
Sure.
They don't have a lizard's thicket in Washington, do they?
Oh, no. And hey,
I don't know, is that good or bad?
you know, that's not good, because my favorite is the cream chip beef on toast. You'll get that everywhere.
This morning?
Yes. Yeah. And that was out half order. Dino told me I need to lose weight.
No, he's on a diet eating Polish sausage.
It's an exception.
Okay, Dino, stop eating. We have not said the blessing because everything was too much. So if you would like to say the blessing, Ross.
Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this video. Thank you for this fellowship. Take this food, nourish our bodies so that we might better serve thee.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. All right, go on, eat. But you know. You can resume. You can resume. Go on with your diet. With your diet of fried potatoes,
Oh,
Polish sausage.
In a week.
Isn't he cute? How'd you guys like that picture I put up here at Monday
In a week's
morning?
time, how many miles can you do?
I mean, it's 3 to 5 a day,
Okay.
and a longer run on the weekend.
And you can multiply.
Yeah,
25 to 30.
yeah, 25 to 30.
Okay. Wilma, if you run 25 to 30, you can get potatoes too.
Hey, listen, I ate 10
That's a marathon a week.
Yeah, 25 to 30. This is potato. First time potatoes in 2 months.
Okay, but then I can see, There's one thing I want to say, Joe Wilson.
yes.
We are people my age, and I've handled town hall meetings. Okay? We need you in person. We love it when you're in person. That way, because people my age, we are not
To do a bus tour.
technically
And
knowledgeable.
that's why we do a bus tour next week.
I know, I
And
saw
so-
that,
and
exciting.
so,
Because people like me, my age, they want to see you, right? Those youngins, they can, Hope, Alex,
and
Fred, they can listen on the phone.
Well, something interesting, people much older than you really like the town hall because they're at home, and then it's somewhat embarrassing. They will tell me how much I'll see them at Bilo or Dollar General, and they'll stop me and say, "I really enjoyed speaking with you on the phone," as if it was a personal conversation, and I'm embarrassed to point out to them that it was a mass call. and so people much older than you.
Oh, I like that wing.
Actually identify with the hey.
I know,
It's
but
tough for them to leave their home, okay, and so, or get back and forth, and so it should be a combination. That's why Dino arranged to have a combination of teletown hall, and I call it town hall by telephone, because teletown hall runs together, and then in person, but hey, my goal that I'm really glad that Butch has put together, along with Alex, is if 3 or more together, I'm supposed to be there, so that's what we're trying to do.
Well, I think I just got spoiled by you coming, you know. I just got spoiled, you know.
We got brand new,
I remember I called and I said, when is gonna have a town hall? He said he already did.
we got 14 brand new high schools out of 15 in the last, what, 20 years? We can't find a place like that for you to speak to us to?
Oh, no, he has places, everybody welcomes.
Oh, you're talking about teleconference,
Oh,
or teletown hall, I mean.
tell it.
Yeah.
Tell it.
Do I have kids?
But it's a great way, it's amazing that, we can call 20,000
Do you
people.
want to?
Like this, okay?
Let's do
Well,
it.
do we have a
That's a-
tutorial somewhere on the website to explain how it works so people can just five-step process of, hey, so that's what you do when I call you for to be some tutorial, even like a shorthand of say, here's when I
And
call you.
I somewhat feel bad that I'm repetitious telling you, if you would like to ask a question and we don't get to you, please stay on the line and leave your question and there will be a response. And so there's a reason why, and then I'm repetitious explaining Wilson's Weekly Watch so that people, and it's sort of, again, people much older than you are computer.
Keep saying that.
It's really impressive because they're far more computer literate than I am.
You trying to let it cool down, right?
Well, thank you very much. Well, we're glad you came this morning. Really, did you come to see us or did you come for that corned beef?
A combination. This is the only place I know you can buy it.
Well, then why don't you announce it?
And I've done that for Bobby Williams, this is his dad's favorite.
You're-
That's the only reason it's on the menu.
People should be able to do whatever they
Only he
want.
and I ordered.
The,
Do you? How's that? I didn't, he wasn't on there this morning.
Here's an announcement. Eddie McCain has a birthday tomorrow, y'all.
Happy birthday.
oh, yeah.
Are you gonna be, you're in a long way from my age, so.
Yeah, you're gonna be old enough to vote this time around?
Oh, we were gonna register you today, but okay.
I gotta wait one more day. I'll be with you.
Have you got your concealed weapons permit?
No.
I know somebody
Oh,
teaches that.
what does that tell you, Mr. Whatever you
21
call,
yet.
Liberty Republican, or whatever the word is. You don't have a concealed weapons permit? You need to hop on it, buddy.
Yes, girl. I didn't mean to put you in the mic.
Come on, Eddie.
But I tell you what, since we're
I
there,
think you got her working for you.
Since you're there.
And listen, since
Tell
we're
him-
there.
tell him, Eddie,
he
you
does
spent-
concealed weapons, whatever you call that program.
oh yeah, there you go. You call it. You think that's why I brought it up?
Eddie, tell him, you spent 20 years in the service, you know what weapons are all about. You don't have to take no stupid class.
I was a scout in the United States Army. I stand strong on the Second Amendment. That's all I need to know about.
Good point, take my class tuition. You're right.
Mr. Wilson, I did it too.
There is a great
What about
disconnect.
somebody that has been in the military and has already gotten out of the military? I mean, got out of the military, not a dishonorable discharge or whatever. Wouldn't it be more logical to make a permit of allowing them, they don't have to go through that?
There is.
Oh, wow, neato, tell
But at the
us.
same time, there's state laws that oftentimes people in the military don't know the state laws.
What is this?
And
What
they're covered
is
in
it?
the
Well,
CWP.
I know that I qualified because I was a member of the Guard. And so, and I was the author of the bill. And then to get the concealed weapons permit provision through, the House passed it, the Senate, obviously, and this was back when we were at the Carolina hearing, and I'll never forget. Remember how, I don't know if you know, but the Senate actually met on the second floor in the ballroom, and there were two exits, and so I had two House members standing at the door as we were having votes to remind people that we were voting and that it was not time to leave, okay? And we only won by one vote. And that was because State Representative Jeff Young from Sumter stopped one of our strongest supporters who had a keen desire to go watch a basketball game. And so, but we won by one vote, and in fact, the state paper, and some of our people were offering amendments for referendums, this kind of stuff, which is not necessary, which was the position of the state paper, of course. And then they kept editorializing this would lead to a shootout at OK Corral. And so, and the good news is, of course, that we know that it's had a reduction in crime and people feel safer. There were somewhat odd things that motivated me. One are nurses running through the parking lots of hospitals at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so they could not get a concealed weapons permit because they couldn't prove that they were at risk all the time. And then also another group that you would not imagine, florists. On February 14th, every criminal in the free world except Wilma knows that florists are flush with cash. And I said, people pay cash for Valentine's.
Stories florist.
Cash. And so this was not unique. People of ill intent knew this. And so florists were at risk. And so they would go to Pete Strom, go to SLED and apply for a weapons permit. And they say, oh, no, you don't qualify. You're only at risk one day a year. Oh, that's cool. That got my attention. And so, and obviously, having worked with NRA all my life, it was, and a member, we were able to get through it, but it was my one vote. And then I'm really pleased that about 5 years ago, one of our chief, and there was a filibuster we had to break, of course, by the Democrats. And Linda Short, former member from upstate, she voted with us, and gosh, they were, it was hateful, the comments made of her, but we were able to win by one vote. And then the good news is, and I don't want to ruin his reputation, but one of the chief liberals of our state told me later that I was right, that he was wrong. And then something I've really begged NRA and other groups is to that examples of success need to be, it should be a hero of the month, okay? And there'd be many heroes really, but and in their magazine, I believe they do now, have an example, but this needs to be publicized because, hey, good news is simply not going to be published about a weapon. And so if they will do the excesses, and I think that it's like just 1 or 2 people of the thousands of people in South Carolina who have a concealed weapons permit who've used it in the wrong way.
And look at all the people that don't have the permit, they use it wrong.
Absolutely, and gosh, our local paper now has become police blotter, and so wow, and then you know, it really is sad to read about the dysfunction of the city of Columbia, and even with the mayor trying to do something. And I was not aware that the city administrator was the boss. I didn't know that.
Oh.
So that's over there over the years. I mean, you know, how did the structure get like that?
I did not know.
I didn't either.
That's ridiculous. And
City
what a
administrator
meeting
wasn't the
of.
boss when Colton was there.
No, I didn't know. The city administrator was a person you could go to on behalf of all mayor, and I thought the mayor had power. But
You're trying to change that. They had a,
Yep, they've already said it.
Yeah, but I've never seen a town,
There weren't any
city,
votes for it.
especially the size of Columbia, that exists. The mayor was not actually the head mayor's a bigger person, he's an iron charge. And I mean, never, I couldn't imagine. I was really dismayed.
it was last Wednesday,
figure.
the, at Columbia City Council and the mayor met.
Figured
And,
it.
they discussed that for over 4 hours. The reason why I know that is because the next morning, my text was being blown up by some homeless people that I know who were upset that they also made the decision to make it illegal to be homeless in Columbia. And they're gonna round up all the homeless people and herd them out of town, you know, because you got a small percentage of them that misbehave, key cars.
Now, is that the stupidest thing you ever heard?
That type of thing.
And I was like, why did they build
Illegal to be homeless.
building on the corner of Main Street?
It's like it's illegal to not have insurance.
Yeah. Huh?
But anyway, they were telling me about it, and I asked them, I said, well, what?
I mean, we liked it.
He told me he said, we didn't leave. One of my homeless buildings was there. I said, he knew about this. He said they were there until 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, what did they talk about for 2 o'clock in the morning? You know, and he goes, well, the mayor wants to have his power, and the management wants to have their power. And they spent 4 hours talking way above my head. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I know it was about
We are
power.
the power. Period.
He said, and then they talked about making it illegal for me to be in Columbia.
It's we the people, it's not me that.
Well, I want to know, since we've got Congressman here, I mean, what's the agenda when you head back to Washington? What's the Republican part of the House? We're trying to defund Obamacare. So what's the biggest issue y'all see that's forward?
Well, indeed, toward the end of the month, we'll have a showdown on the continuing resolution. One of the proposals that I like is to do, have everything in place except defunding of Obamacare. So it's really clear that, if the government is shut down, it's over that. And of course, no surprise, poor Alan, who was driving over here, had to listen to me. Alan Combs was on Fox News announcing that obviously the solution to Obamacare is to add more money. Well, we knew that was the solution. I mean, I said that from the beginning, that this is going to be like cash for Congress, it's going to be overwhelmed. And of course, cash for Congress was easily resolved. They just spent 3 times more money, okay? And well, you can't do that with Obamacare. They may try, but of course the answer to everything is that Congress, as Alan pointed out, did not properly fund it.
The difference between the clunker escapade and this Obamacare is when they got their little clunker credit, they ended up having to pay tax on it. Obamacare, we gotta pay tax on it also, but if we don't have it.
See, Wilma, you just taught me something. I didn't realize that.
Oh, yes, honey.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
You
yes.
should come
That
watch
wasn't
it.
free?
No. No, what happened was.
They wanted to give you $7,500 to trade in your clunker.
Right, and if you did, you had a $7,500 added to your income. You got a 1099 from the dealer.
Wilma, and that's just,
Yes, that is why I
you're up in,
am an accountant.
you've made it a lot worse.
See, individuals have to pay taxes.
Wow.
That little tidbit comes from story counter religions.
At least I won't deliver flowers, but
That's why I've still got, that's why I still got printed on the side of my pickup truck that I like my clunker.
yeah, people don't realize some of these things that are taxable to them. They're thinking, oh, they're getting this good, you know, but it's not. It's not good. Nothing taxable is good. Just thought I'd throw that in.
Butch, what do you do with your clunkers when you wear them?
I have 275,000 miles on my 2003.
So can you sell them?
Still have
Yeah, I think we got about the same mileage.
Yeah, they got 240,000 on my
and
old
finance.
How about,
I don't know how they I don't know if yes, but there's plenty of.
our country and get us back to a country of laws instead of regulations?
Well, I'm even more concerned than regulations is that they have a president who just changes the law to suit his agenda, and which has every aspect of a banana republic.
I know, but what he's doing is he's taking agencies and saying, regulate them the way we want. I mean, forget the laws. It's regulated to make it come out the end result.
Well, Ross, we can count on the courts now, but in the future, I'm really concerned as they make appointments that will change. But for example, the issue of Yucca Mountain, which is crystal clear. Congress has voted and funded Yucca Mountain. One person's blocking it. Actually, two, Harry Reid and the president. And so, but the people of that region want it, actually. It's called jobs. And they know it's safe and secure, okay? This is where we had the nuclear testing programs in the 1950s. It will never look like Reno and Las Vegas. And the highest and best use is a nuclear dump. And my head explodes in that our state has put $1.2 billion into Yucca Mountain already. Can you imagine? I can't imagine anything that the people of this state have put any level of magnitude of money into that didn't come to fruition. That just is amazing to me. And I mentioned that to a reporter last week in an interview, and she said, I didn't know that, and of course then she didn't report it either. And so, but gosh, it's just, they're ruling by fiat. So we have the courts now. But I'm very concerned as ultra liberals. We're not talking about liberals. We're talking about extremists.
But unless somebody runs it through the process to get to the courts, it becomes law.
Yeah.
It's just accepted policy. And I mean, we need. I guess we need to change our executive policy.
That's it. No, and hey, and it's and it's so sad as we're thinking of the, to me, of the. Conflict between the makers and the takers. All the takers are not people of homeless. Many of the takers are people of means who benefit from a taking from you. And so it's real. I'm really concerned, particularly for the young people here, the consequences of the like Wilma.
You're right. Sometimes you're fluent. You've got to take and continue to take and reposition to do that. Curtis Loftus.
Someone's got to pay for those high-rise condos in New York and Boston, Chicago and San Francisco.
Well, even closer home, Curtis Loftus says we have 226 people in the state drawing over $100,000 a year in retirement from the state and still working. We've got one person, $336,000 in the state drawing, that's a state retirement check, and it's not yet 60 years old.
Not yet. Wow.
So yeah, we've got that. A lot of these things, as we work through the system, see the loopholes and you go to it. It's hard. It's always places. But you know, I see it unless we can start being more land along to regulations. We're going to do.
Well, that's where good people need to be elected at every level.
You said you're worried about the expansion of the executive branch. In February of 2012, you voted for the expedited legislative line item veto, a rescission act of 2012, which gave the executive office more powers to do line item vetoes. We've also
when was it?
February 8th of 2012.
And I'll be glad to get back with you on that. Okay, I'm really
right.
On each piece of legislation, I can remember but not every one.
Well, what it did is it expanded the executive powers, which it was unconstitutional what the vote actually did, and so I'm one of those young people that's a little bit worried about what's being done with the executive branch. One way I think that we can make sure that the president obeys the laws is to require that wars are declared by Congress just as the U.S. Constitution requires, because as long as we allow the executive branch to go to war without the approval of Congress, then we allow the president to break whatever rules he wants to because he's able to get away with that.
And I have been very vocal in regard to Libya. To me, that was a violation of just what you said. And but specifically on legislation, I'm glad all you have to do is contact somebody like Bush or Alex, and we'll be glad to find out that specific vote. But philosophically, that doesn't seem like something that I would vote for. I'd like to know how it's attached.
Do you have that bill number? The bill is bill number 3521. That was the line item veto.
So write it down, you guys, so we can.
Who sponsored the bill? Who ruled it unconstitutional?
You ruled it unconstitutional? Yeah, this is from the Freedom Index, the 2013 Freedom Index. So it takes every vote and it makes a decision whether or not it's constitutional or not.
Hey, I'm responsible for every vote. Unlike,
right.
Every time I hear about our president voting president,
right.
Hey, I've had that opportunity. It never occurred to me. I just can't. So hey, I'm a record.
Right.
And
When you just asked me, like, who ruled it unconstitutional?
It would have been the New American Magazine. Was in
So
charge
the
of this
magazine
Freedom
ruled it
Index.
unconstitutional, not a court? You said it was unconstitutional, so I'm just asking who ruled it unconstitutional?
Well, it's based upon the Constitution, the interpretation.
Okay, but it's in a magazine that says it's unconstitutional, or a court of law?
It's
Because a court can rule it unconstitutional, a magazine can say whatever they want.
well, a court can also rule things that are passed constitutional when they're unconstitutional.
You
So
made
the
a
courts
statement though,
aren't
you said
always
it's
right.
unconstitutional, so I'm just trying to find out who said it was unconstitutional.
It's the New American Magazine.
I've never been there.
So it's the big-
Well, I can describe to you why it is unconstitutional if everybody wants to listen.
No, actually, no, because.
Because I want to ask a question about fair tax or flat tax.
Okay.
Which tax do you want? Oh dear, who said oh dear?
No, see, I really like flat tax. Okay,
Oh,
now,
you
hey.
just deflated my yellow balloon today.
And see, people make so much money, well, they'll call you back for other work, all right?
No. They don't need more work.
And so, I can see how the flat tax would work on the index card, okay? And then, an example, I was in St. Petersburg, Russia, for the 60th anniversary of VE Day, and I was there for the program. It was really inspiring to me because that was the time we worked together, right? And they were actually giving us credit for, at the Siege of Leningrad for providing all the equipment. Joseph Stalin said he had provided all the equipment, and they found that all the trucks and everything said made in USA. And he said, well, that meant Joseph Stalin. Anyway, it was exciting to be there.
You're making me feel old. I was there for the 30th year.
Oh, no. You weren't supposed to be there for the 30th. No, this was safe. This was in post-Soviet Russia. But anyway, I was talking with government leaders, and they were telling me what a problem they've had, and that is that they couldn't collect taxes. And I said, people will pay no, they won't pay taxes. In this new era of freedom, they just feel like they shouldn't pay taxes. I said, well, what's the tax rate? And they said, it's 105%. I said, well, that can explain why nobody's paying taxes, okay? And so they actually shifted to a 15% flat tax. And it had exactly the effect of people paying taxes, but the economy growing. And hey, people were smuggling. They found out that smuggling.
They do that.
Yeah, but smuggling to Estonia was a huge business and very profitable. And but the bottom line is, so I just see the benefits of a flat tax.
Yeah, quick, kind of playing off of Dino and Evan's conversation a second ago. Do you believe that a piece of legislation, even though the Supreme Court rules that it's constitutional, can be unconstitutional? Do you believe that the Supreme Court is supposed, constitutionally is supposed to be the final arbiter
You know, I
on that
believe the
decision.
court should be the final arbiter, Eddie, but we also have to, and I'm really pleased, with the Republican majority, you have to sign a statement as you introduce legislation that you believe is constitutional.
Actually, the Supreme Court really didn't become the final arbiter when the Constitution was written. It became the final arbiter when it basically took that upon itself with, I think it's the Mayberry Madison case.
Or Marbury versus Madison.
Yeah, 1803, 1804, something like that. Prior to that, they did not have that responsibility, and that responsibility was never given to them in the Constitution. They just took it, and nobody challenged it.
I believe in hallmark of our nation's freedom and success has been rule of law. And so, but it depends on good judges being appointed, okay? And so, obviously, this guy is going to be appointing people who truly believe that the Constitution is a living document. You can't count on it. That really concerns me. And
How does the Patriot Act get around the Fourth Amendment?
It's supposed to be, okay, very finely drawn. That doesn't mean, in fact, with NSA, the reason I voted against the NSA funding was because they had misinterpreted the word relevant, which to me, relevant should be pretty precise. And then why should I have faith in NSA if Russian intelligence gives us twice information about a terrorist and we can't figure that out? Okay? I am just, and then somebody else who is very upsetting me, Lois Lerner, the thought that a high-ranking official could plead the Fifth and then go on vacation. And now we find out in Benghazi, the State Department officials who were directly responsible for security, and Ambassador Stevens said, ask for security. They're back on the job.
But the
There's no
Patriot
accountability in
Act
this government.
basically allows for the government to basically make an accusation that everybody is a potential domestic terrorist and throw a whole blanket over everybody.
I had a conversation with the chairman of the two committees, all right? Intelligence and Armed Services, and I said, why should I trust NSA? They can't figure out the difference between Knights of Columbus and a terrorist and a jihadist. So
yeah, because if you
which
go,
is wrong. I mean,
if you go on the Homeland Security website and you look at who they classify as a potential domestic terrorist.
You're really strong to be able to put up with that.
Going on that website.
Well, I'm just telling you, and what I'm fixing to say, I've had conversations with law enforcement who tell me that they get emails regularly on who to look out for. Military veterans. Pentecostals, people of the Christian Pentecostal faith are considered potential terrorists. Anybody that has a bumper sticker like I do that says I take the Constitution seriously, if a highway patrolman pulls up behind and sees that, that is supposed to keep them that you might be behind a potential terrorist.
And that's why I voted the way I did.
But you voted for the CISPA bill, which gives internet information to the NSA. You voted for that twice. Were you aware that
with
the CISPA, C-I-S-P-A?
No, with the belief
Right.
that it was going to be limited. Okay, and so and we now find out, and I have learned a lot. April the 23rd, 2012, I sent a letter to the IRS along with 63 other Republicans expressing concern about IRS and how they were targeting people. Okay. A year and a month later, the president said, gee whiz, I saw on the news last Friday that IRS is targeting people. I've been ahead of the curve on expressing concerns, and now that we see abuse after abuse, we don't have to, there are specific cases which our government is doing wrong, and I'm really pleased that we've had people, and I've been who are to stand up to this, and beginning At every time I've been asking for clarification, maybe I don't, but I truly now, it is so sad. I mean, I don't want to feel this way about different agencies, and of course, I really hadn't gotten over NLRB. The thought that Boeing could have a 1.1 million square foot building that 1,000 people could be employed, and then they come in and say it can't be built. That's ridiculous. But that's really the tip of an iceberg on different excesses of government.
You're just too nice, Joe. You just, oh, excuse me, I didn't call you.
When I was,
Excuse me, let me finish.
I'm sorry.
When you said, I believed, you know, because from now on, you better not believe everything those people are telling you.
No, I didn't. I knew better than to believe everything, but there was certain.
I know, that's what I'm
thought we
saying.
would-
You know, you
I
think
truly-
that people are going to do the right thing.
Well, no, not only just do the right thing, but follow the law. We are supposed to be a country of laws, not regulations, not misinterpretations. And then we're supposed to have safeguards of a court system. And I'll be working toward that end.
that's why it's so important, we can't ever, under any circumstance, for any reason, go for legislation that's going to give any kind of opportunity for federal government to expand into areas that they shouldn't expand. And I'll give you an illustration, and I hope this is a good one, because I haven't really thought it through yet. I'm fixing to say it. When I was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana, in the Army, there was no housing on base, so I had to live off base. So I bought a house on the street called Lena Beth Drive in the cul-de-sac. There's like 12 houses on the street. I was fortunate enough to live down on the end where the cul-de-sac is. My boys were real small. They were like age 4 and age 6. And of course, they learned how to ride bicycles and stuff like that. And so I told them, I said, you can ride your bicycle in front of our house in the cul-de-sac, but you cannot go past Mr. I think his name was Williams' house, who was my next door neighbor. You can't go past their driveway. Because I knew that there's only going to be a couple cars coming down to that end of the cul-de-sac. My road was off a big highway. I mean, cars and trucks flying down 55, 60 miles an hour. I did not want them up there. Now, I really didn't care if they went past my neighbor's driveway. That wasn't my issue. My issue was I didn't want them going the other 100 yards down the road and getting into the highway. So I stopped them. I had a buffer. And when I told my son that, I know my boy, I know my son, I know human nature. I used to be a little boy myself. And when I told Trey, who was riding his bicycle, I said, look here, I said, you cannot go past this driveway. I walked into the garage and I watched him. I saw him on that little bike, little legs. He's only like 6 years old, training wheels. And he's going up the road a little bit. He's looking back to see if I'm watching him. And as soon as he passed that driveway, I yelled, Trey, get back here. I brought him back. I swatted him on the butt. I said, put your bike in the garage and go in the house. Now, did I do that because I didn't want him to go 5 feet past the ground? No. I did that because I didn't want him coming close to the highway. Because I knew as a 6-year-old, if he got close to the highway, he could be killed. Well, that's how I see federal government. Man, we have gone so far. We are 17 trillion with a T dollars in debt. We are right at 150 trillion unfunded liabilities with Medicare, Medicare D. We got government spying on us right and left. We're going into wars that Congress doesn't even vote on. We're just going. People are making decisions arbitrarily without even going to the Constitution and seeing if they have the authorization.
I think you need to call Obama about that,
I'll speak to him.
because he's the one doing it. We're not, and you're yelling at us.
Well, I don't mean to yell. I'm halfway deaf. So I talk about but my point is, we can't ever forego legislation or ever give government an opportunity to do the wrong thing. And that's what we're doing. And that's why we're in the hole we're in. If we never voted for the Patriot Act, if we never voted for Medicare D and for TAR, and
Hey, I don't
for
know,
all
I'm
these
ready
other,
for Medicare. Don't you say a word about it until I figure it out.
that's, man, that's,
Hey, that's,
Medicare D, we're about tree
You
in
know
front of
what?
us, nothing.
You know what, Eddie, you're 54 years old. You have enough time to pay for my Medicare Part D on your taxes. So don't worry about it. Okay.
I have a
And
question.
that's
Yes.
the point, good people can disagree.
That's exactly.
Well, who's gonna pay for
At
it?
least two good people.
That's what I said, you're 54. I got
I have a question.
Yeah, we paid for the ones that are dead and gone. It's your
Pay
turn.
for them, so that's- I'll take
You
it.
have, you're more on the economy and stuff like that. And it's nice thing to meet you, because I was actually, when you were came for election before, I was in different states. Where are we going with? I know you was from the whole UI thing. So, I mean,
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Michigan,
Oh, great.
so,
Michigan hillbilly.
yeah. Anyway, what is, obviously, what Eddie's been kind of hitting on is the idea that power corrupts. That's so power's been corrupt.
Lord Acton.
Yeah, right. And really the biggest thing is it's gonna keep corrupting because we're not paying the bills. What is your stance on, looking at what the Federal Reserve is and what we're doing with the money supply right now? And, I mean, how does that?
I, obviously, signed on and voted for an audit of the Federal Reserve. And then, as recently as yesterday, I met with some financial analysts who are professionals, all right? And I said, how can money just be printed, like $85 billion a month, and this not have a consequence how did they get the authority? Anyway, I was really disappointed. They didn't know.
Most of them don't even know that they,
No. These were the top state leaders without defaming of this industry. And because to me, it just
The Federal Reserve is not really federal, it's more federal than Federal Express, it's a private bank.
And that's the problem with the financial industry right now, because I've been in that. If you tell people about the Federal Reserve and tell them about what's really going on, you risk losing your license, because the federal government, FINRA, is the one that requires you to follow all these rules
and these
to
were
be
licensed.
licensed.
You're right, these were licensed people, but I share your chagrin and concern, and I'm happy to ask everywhere I go.
Congressman Joe, was you gonna ask?
I have my hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
I knew you were gonna jump in there. I just wanted, with everything that's going on right now with, separating the vote, like the Senate sent their immigration bill, and I know this is a big one for everyone. I know the House generally has a different point of view on how they want to go about tackling the immigration issue. That's different than the Senate's. Could you give me your opinion on how you think we should tackle
Well, hey, I'm really pleased. Trey Gowdy's terrific, right?
yes, he is.
He's really got a handle on it. And that's border security. But I don't know how you would trust the people who are not enforcing now and trust them in the future. And hey, it goes back, enforce the laws we have. I can well remember I was a clerk for State Senator Floyd Spence. And there were riots at the University of South Carolina. And Brett Bursey, people like that were throwing bricks at National Guard members. And I came back from school one day and I said, Senator, we need a law against throwing bricks. And he was very respectful as he smiled and said, we have the laws, enforce them. And I've never forgotten that.
That is exactly.
And so in the state senate, that was always the way I looked at it, enforce what we have. And then on immigration laws, we actually have good immigration laws. They should be enforced.
Exactly.
So why would you ever anticipate a 2,100-page bill to be enforced if they can't enforce virtually anything of the current law?
You know what?
They do those large bills.
So gracious that we all answered our questions. You were here to eat breakfast with us, and we just couldn't resist bombarding you with questions.
Hey, I ran for this, okay? And I want to work on the issues, and I really have enjoyed working with conservative cause all my life. And when you see be for it. Limited government is banded freedom, period. And we are now seeing the excess of big government. And somehow we've got to get the message out. The NSA, the IRS, NLRB. That's what big government is, okay? And it's limited freedom.
But we got that based off of votes that took place a few years back. Some of the ones you voted for.
Which, again, have been misinterpreted, and that's why I'm happy, Eddie, to work for proper and limited interpretation. And there's no way that some of the things, it's just absurd, the things that are going on. There's no way that anybody would have thought that people would be this out of control, but we now see. And so the court system just got to remain independent. It's an independent branch of our government to rein in. But I'm so concerned that, hey, Justice Roberts, I'm just crushed that he did what he did. I call it healthcare takeover.
That's why there shouldn't be a lifetime appointments for the Supreme Court.
You're talking the idea at one time, like Eddie had said at one point in time, that the justice of the Supreme Court wasn't the official arbitration, and now that it is, because it is.
And it just took it.
Well,
it just said,
is.
we're going to be the arbitrator.
It is what it is. It is what it is. And our current function of government, like you said, is really on getting their people in. And you said the overstating of, we just had Chris Hoffman, and you talked about, Councilman talks about, where the broad interpretations of what's being passed is so vague that really they can do anything with it. And so, one of the things that I guess when you vote for something, and I'm not a lawyer or anything else, but that's something that you almost have to look at what you're doing based on what's the worst.
You're dead right. You just can't anticipate good. And you can anticipate people pushing the envelope. But thank goodness we have good people, I believe, like Trey Gowdy, and he's got a talent as a former solicitor to really ask questions. One of the lowest points of my serving in Congress was this year. HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, former governor of Kansas, came. And I could tell from her meeting that she was offended to have to be with such proletariat, looking for Arizona, and that they were not worthy to be in her presence. I could feel it, okay? And so Trey asked her questions about how she was raising money for education purposes, propaganda, outside of the office. And so and she said, well, I made 2 phone calls to the Robert A. Wood Foundation, to H&R Block, remember H&R Block? And they were very happy to give me $1 million each for my program. But that's all the calls I made. Trey is a master. Within the next 3 minutes, he got her to admit that she'd made 3 more calls to companies that she had jurisdiction. And she was offended that she had to tell the truth. And so these people are eager and enthusiastic to mislead, to not tell the truth. And I really, in my public service, I've never seen anything like this. But they really do believe that the ends justify the means. And the ends is their power.
But given, the idea that you can have we talk about guns all the time, that a gun, if is a source of power. Bad people do bad things with it, do good things with it. But ultimately, our Constitution, our government was set up where that power exists. Where you check that power.
Their theory of power is you not have a gun, so they've got all the power.
But that's what we have. What you talk about the Constitution, being the judges, is nobody else has a gun, they just have a gun. Or the President of the United States, we're going to apply whatever we pass, I'll apply what you want. So the idea of the federal government expanding, any time the federal government expands, you're ultimately, sooner or later, there's going to be some bad people getting in power, and they're going to corrupt it. Doesn't matter how good of it is.
You can look back at, again, limited government is what I believe. And government should not be doing for the people what people can't do for themselves. And government should be doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. themselves. And that's why I am obviously a proponent of national defense. That's in the Constitution, plus that's not something we can do. And we're seeing the consequences, I believe, of a weakened defense, sequestration. It's really directed at defense and the instability that we see, which is no question to me. With Floyd Spence always was his campaign manager. People come up to me after the breakfast and say, the congressman ruined breakfast. He was talking about dangerous to our country, a jihadist, before it was cool. And they really were well-meaning people. They said, we really want him, he doesn't need to talk about that. He should be talking about something important. Education. I said, education. That's not a federal issue, okay? Eddie, that's not a federal issue. That is local school boards.
No child left behind.
And that's why we, John Klein, the chairman of the Education Workforce Committee, to undo all of that, we passed legislation just 3 weeks ago to truly turn things back over to local school boards.
But didn't you vote for no child left behind?
No, I wasn't there. Thank you.
Are you aware of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership?
I would have to get the information on that.
Okay. What they're gunning for is a EU-US merger, and these entangling alliances take away our sovereignty.
Well, I'm not interested in a North American alliance or a, hey, the thought of merging, God bless, the profligate countries of Europe, i.e., we had the example, sadly, of Greece, Ireland, Portugal, Spain. And the thought of, that would be a code to pick up their debts. No, that's not.
The best thing I think we can do, and please let me know your opinion, is to remove ourselves from the United Nations, because a lot of what happens with these entangling alliances that we're making.
In fact, I have voted not fund the United Nations. Okay, and I also work with Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Lehtinen, where on foreign aid, if countries vote against our positions in the United Nations, they would not receive foreign aid. But you'll see there were several votes that any of the last votes relative to the United Nations I have voted to defund.
Donald Trump would probably buy the United Nations building if we let him.
And he could convert it into
Luxury condos.
Hotel, casino.
No, man, I was saying casino. And make money.
Joe, thank you so much for attending. You are more than welcome to come anytime your little heart desires.
I appreciate y'all getting together. And gosh, I've been
You
working
didn't
all my
know
life.
that we were like this, did you?
Well, hey, I want people to be like this. I want people involved. I've been working all my life for people to be involved.
Not to
And hey,
name drop, but your son and
Good. And I'm so proud of Alan and his efforts. And truly, I think back to NLRB, I think of voter identification in the internet said the way that they've intentionally smeared all of us with great enthusiasm. You know, when I read the criticisms of the extremists who've taken over North Carolina, I was go down to the next paragraph. Every piece of legislation that has passed, thank goodness, and with a new, and I never thought it would happen now, Republican majority, conservative majority in the House and Senate, governor, lieutenant governor, and I campaigned for all of it. Every single piece of legislation that you hear is weird. It's not weird at all. It is mainstream conservative. And then the people who are objecting to it, there are some extremists in North Carolina.
we have them here too.
Yeah, but no, Wilma, they've always had a extraordinary UNC far left presidents that we have been blessed not. Ours can be counted on one hand. Theirs are in the thousands. but they've already, hey, and we should look at that. And every time we hear about negative, look at North Carolina. That was a really positive success story.
So is their tax situation reasonable?
Yes.
Throw that in.
No, and they were criticized for reducing taxes.
I know they were criticized for it, but that's.
No, hey, the good news is I have faith in a majority Slimmers that they did in North Carolina. Hey, I want to thank y'all and I'm racing and continue to be up.
Oh, sorry.
No, hey, Joyce, I understand. The Mize family knows how to dress properly.
That's a truth.
Thank you.
No, thank you.